Boppy USA presents The Access Road, True Tales of a Vagabond Veteran. Written and read by me, the author, J. Joseph. Let me explain the title of this book, The Access Road, True Tales of a Vagabond Veteran. First, the access road. Everyone has a road in life, whether it's predetermined or unknown. We all travel on this road to the very end. Most people walk, but for me, I was sitting in a top-fueled funny car starting at about 8th grade, and I had the pedal to the metal. I knew I had certain talents, like performing or making people laugh, so I floored it. What I didn't consider was that the faster I went, the faster and closer I came to the end of my road. For most people, the road is long and windy, and sometimes you may even lose sight of what's ahead. Problems can arise, but we eventually learn to deal with these problems, adapt, restructure ourselves, and move on. Lesson learned. But when you're doing 90 miles per hour and not looking back, confident that you know everything, you're bound to crash sooner or later. And although, fortunately, that never happened to me, I sure was swerving and fishtailing for most of my adult years. The only thing that kept me in control was my street smarts and the reminder that I just couldn't go out like this. On a lot of highways across America, there are access roads that run right alongside them. They'll get you to the same destination as the highway would, but these are private. You don't have to be alongside everyone else, and that sounded kind of perfect for someone like me. I took my access road when I did a hard right turn in 1994, and only recently got back onto the highway with the rest of the world. Now all of my friends have kids and comfy homes, and they've been with their job for 20 plus years, and I never had any of that. In all honesty, maybe it was meant to be that way. I always knew that I was geared towards something bigger, something that I don't think I could have honestly achieved with a family to support, because then they would have been my focus. Instead, I fucked off for the better part of 25 years. I was a vagabond, and wherever I went, I made a statement. What I did have, however, were hundreds, if not thousands, of stories about people, places, and things that I saw or experienced on that access road, and I'm kind of proud of that. The fact that I'm still alive, and even healthier now, to tell these stories has been very cathartic for me. I made a hard left and jumped back onto the main highway of life, slowed down just a little bit, started being reasonable about my goals, and now can use that absolute wealth of knowledge I've accrued over these insane 25 years to put all these stories into art form, be it music or comedy or film. Nobody else can tell or write these stories, and a lot of them may come as a shock to some of you, but they are all true, save for some creative liberties to protect people's names, but you know who you are. So, these are the stories from the access road. An out-of-control, off-the-beaten-path directional road being driven on at high speed by an out-of-control person who only recently took his foot off the gas. And when looking back at what I've passed, run into, or stopped upon, the stories are pretty great. What kind of stories will you hear in this book? Well, feel free to skip around, but I start with stories from my childhood in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, which was pretty awesome, and it's an awesome place to grow up as a kid, and I was pretty lucky as a kid. Then we get into my teen years through high school, which were even better and more magical for me. I always hear about how people hated high school, but I loved it. Things were A-okay for me. But don't worry, I end up ruining this great streak pretty quickly. Because then, without warning, I decided to put it all on pause and join the Marine Corps, which at the time was the worst, best decision I could make given all the opportunity I had at my feet. What was I doing? I wasn't sure, but that was the turn I made onto the access road. For reasons that will become more obvious in the book, I ended up becoming a professional spy. And yes, I lived that stereotypical noir movie lifestyle. I was around a lot of bad people, and that kind of rubbed off on me, and I became a little bad myself. And to be honest, it felt kind of good. But then I jumped right back into becoming what I wanted to do in the very first place, being a professional drummer, but also while being a spy. It was a very back and forth, night and day way to live, every day, for a long time. Being in the spotlight and being connected in certain ways then led to being with certain types of women and a certain type of lifestyle, which unfortunately became my guiding light for a long time. And when you're getting paid, literally, to drink and party, you might get out of control with both, and boy did I drive that car further off the road with those two vices, both of which I couldn't get enough of. These incidents make for great, horrible tales of woe that were perfect for stand-up comedy shows. But then, through all of this, some poor girl, a sweet country bumpkin with a heart of gold, ended up marrying me. Can you imagine? Ugh. So I decided to get my shit together and went into teaching music to private students and high school drum lines, and also getting involved with Drum Corps International in 1999, touring around playing stadiums. Then when I wasn't touring, I went right back to being in a rock band, being a spy, being drunk, and getting into trouble. I'm not saying I wanted to be on the access road, but it was hard to get off the access road because, well, I seemed to be living an okay lifestyle, albeit what it was. Then I weirdly found myself involved with organized retail crimes, specifically with the Russian mafia, and I became an expert on that. I spent a lot of years working in and around animal hospitals, and so I have a lot of stories from that time period because, dogs and cats and animals are crazy in general, but nothing's more crazy than those goddamn owners. So, here's your trigger warning. I talk about suicide in this book. It gets quite in depth, but I find it very meaningful and possibly helpful. There were periods of decadence and extravagance, and there were definitely periods of being a broke dick piece of shit. Maybe it was my shitty attitude. Fuck you! Or my endless caring demeanor. Aww. Regardless, I ended up moving to Minnesota where, except for the death of Prince, there wasn't a lot of news coming out of here. And then George Floyd was murdered, and he wasn't even the first one in those past 5 years. Things in Minnesota exploded. Then the world exploded. I talk about religion a little. I used to be a very devout little Christian boy, and that's kind of funny, knowing how I am now. Of course, being from Philly, you gotta brag about something, right? Not only that, people are genuinely infatuated with Philadelphia people. The Super Bowl definitely helped kick that up a notch.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere.
Weirdly, I talk a little about not only the music industry, but specifically country music, which has become a dominant force across the globe. Even more weird, I discovered country music while living in Italy. Italy, where I lived an insanely unique lifestyle, learned to cook from an 80-year-old traditional old woman named Italia, make half-hearted nervous jokes that I may have a kid roaming around there, and almost found myself inadvertently involved with the actual, real mafia in Milan. And that's just the start of all these adventures. I hope you enjoy this book. Thank you.